On paper, it's one of the most basic promises we've ever made to each other. Every single child has the right to an education. It sounds simple, right? But what happens when that universal promise runs headfirst into the reality of life in one of Nairobi's largest slums? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. Just take a second and picture this scene. It's not just a quote, it's what happens every single day. We're talking about narrow, unpaved paths, maybe open sewers, and kids navigating this whole world of survival just to get to a classroom. This journey is really at the heart of our story today. So before we get into all the challenges, let's back up and look at the foundation. What is this promise that every child, no matter where they're born, whether it's a high-rise apartment or a shack made of corrugated iron, is supposed to be guaranteed? And you have to remember the context here. When this was written back in 1948, the world was literally trying to piece itself back together. Making education a universal human right, that wasn't some minor detail. It was a huge, conscious decision. It was seen as the #1 tool to build dignity, respect, and understanding. It's a really powerful idea when you think about it. But a promise that's made in a big international assembly hall has to travel a really long way to actually reach the kids in Korogocho. So let's zoom in and look at the specific reality they're up against every day. So for the more than 150,000 people who live here, and a huge number of them are under 18, life is a constant daily negotiation. I mean, when your family's main focus is just making it to the next day, sending a child to school, a child who could otherwise be out earning a few shillings, that becomes a really tough choice. This isn't about people not valuing education, it's about the harsh logic of survival crashing into that value. And this brings us right to the central conflict of our whole story. You've got this clear, legally backed international promise on one hand. And then you have the complicated, messy, difficult reality on the ground. So how do they actually stack up against each other? So on paper, Kenya has some of the most forward-thinking laws in all of Africa. The 2010 Constitution, the Basic Education Act of 2013, they both make this right crystal clear. But here's the catch. In practice, free education isn't really free at all. For a family living right on the edge, those small contributions for a uniform or books or exam fees, they're an absolute wall. We're talking about a cost that could be an entire week's worth of food. And for girls, well, that gap between the promise and reality gets even wider. They often have to carry this double burden. On top of all the poverty that affects everybody, they face these challenges that are specific to their gender. The expectation to do unpaid work at home, the pressure to get married early, and the constant threat of violence. It makes their path to a classroom uniquely difficult. So here's the really crucial point. For a teenage girl who gets pregnant, that right to education can pretty much vanish overnight. It gets buried under the stigma from the community, and sometimes even from the schools themselves. And let's be real, a right that you have to constantly defend and fight for against poverty and social pressure, is it really a right at all? But, and this is so important, this is not a story of hopelessness, not even close. This is actually where the real work begins. It's where local heroes step up to build a bridge between that big, shiny promise and the day-to-day reality. And these aren't some big, distant institutions we're talking about. These are community-based organizations, literally born from the slum itself. They get the daily struggles because they live them. You could think of them as translators, turning the abstract language of human rights into actual, tangible support that people can use. And this is where we can put a face to all this incredible effort. Someone like Teddy Omondi. He's not just a director on a letterhead, he's described as this calm, intelligent force, a social worker with years and years of experience right there, on the ground in Korogocho. This is what bridging the gap actually looks like. It's not about big, sweeping statements. It's practical, it's direct, it's making sure a kid doesn't get sent home because their parents couldn't come up with a few hundred shillings for an exam. It's about creating a safe space so that getting an education is even a possibility. And they're not doing this alone, which is so key. This shows the real power of collaboration. You have the local, on-the-ground expertise from leaders like Teddy Omondi, and that's combined with international support from partners like Slum Changers, who help with funding and raising awareness around the world. It creates this powerful model that helps make sure the work is sustainable and can keep growing. Okay, so let's zoom back out for a minute. Why does what's happening in this one community, in this one city, matter to all of us, no matter where we are in the world? Because the Universal Declaration of Human Rights It's not supposed to be some historical document that we just admire in a museum. It's a living, breathing standard. And its true value, its real strength, isn't tested in the halls of the UN. It's tested in the most challenging places on Earth, places exactly like Korogocho. And that's really what this all boils down to, isn't it? The work of organizations like TED's Community Hub is all about transforming an abstract right into a concrete chance, the chance to finish school, the chance to have a choice, the chance for a totally different future. At the end of the day, the answer to that question isn't just decided by governments or big international committees. It's decided every single day by the actions of people right there on the ground and by the attention and support that the rest of us choose to give them. It really makes you think, what does it truly take to make a universal right actually universal?